we have Romeo Reyes, who is an actor, singer-songwriter, tattoo artist, transgender advocate, and model. So he was featured in numerous films such as In the Deep and Dia de los Muertos, and played a tattoo artist on the show Supernatural. He has 3 original songs, Longing for You, Backseat, and Vows, which have all aired on the radio and can be found on all DSPs.
So in 2016, Romeo first opened his first shop called Zen Tattoo in Vancouver, specializing in Asian and floral tattoos. He opened his second location in Richmond, BC in January 2019. Romeo has also produced and directed his own show, filmed by Natalie de Los Santos, titled Interview of the Month, which showcases different viewpoints from the transgender community. He has also documented the changes in his vocal range during the first few years of his gender transition. So welcome, Romeo Reyes.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So Romeo, so I've known you since we were 13, and I've seen you transition from Diane to Romeo. So at what age did you start identifying as male, and was it gradual or did it quote unquote happen overnight?
Well, honestly, like I've felt this since I was a child. Like I felt like I was supposed to be a little boy when I was like a toddler running around. The concept of like gender and like, oh, only girls can do this, girls have to wear pink, and like only guys can do that. Like it just didn't sit well with me, or it didn't make any sense. I'm like, why? Like I want to do that stuff too. But in terms of like the actual transitioning part, I'm 7 years into my transition. But leading up to that, I started like just really thinking about the possibility of transitioning. Because like when we were kids, the word transitioning wasn't a thing, right? It was like sex change. It was called sex change. And I mostly only saw like women, like trans women back in the day. And it just seemed like kind of like a long shot. I'm like, oh, what are the odds of this ever happening? But maybe around, I'd say 8 to 10 years ago, I started noticing people who were undergoing transitions, like people that I actually knew in real life. And I was like, whoa, this is kind of what I want to do. But at the same time, like I lived my life as a female and as a lesbian. So I just thought for the longest time, okay, I could just do this. I could just live as a female lesbian. But every day there was also like this part of me that was kind of like, oh, what if, like I'd look in the mirror and think, while I would get ready, like I wore makeup before, I loved it, and I would get ready, but then I'd look in the mirror sometimes and think, oh, what would I look like if I had, I don't know, like muscles and stuff. And I just thought about, it was like a fantasy. And so one thing that actually held me back from really wanting to transition was possibly like hurting my mom's feelings. Cause like I kind of felt like I was already a burden to her being a lesbian, and like that just caused problems before. So I was afraid to like, move forward and mention anything to her. But then I eventually realized like, no, I got to live for myself. Like I can't just live to make her happy, because that's not cool. So it actually, you're wanting to know when it hit me, right? Like when I decided to actually transition, or
like when, like, because you said 8 to 10 years ago you kind of like started thinking about it. Like obviously up until then you were kind of like, I could be a lesbian, and then you're like, wait, I can actually do this, I can actually become a man, because I've been feeling like a man all this time, or like a boy all this time. So I guess it's safe to say that it wasn't overnight. Okay, that makes
definitely
sense.
Definitely there are things that pushed me closer to like actually starting. So like for example, getting into the film industry, I got into principal acting in 2013. And so I was auditioning and going for female roles. But in the film industry, they base a lot of, I guess, like the characters that they audition you for based on like your looks. So like your headshot. And because I was pretty, I was getting auditioned for roles like sexy woman, and that was just so uncomfortable because like,
Wow.
yeah, sure, it looked that way, but inside I felt different.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until like I was actually in that short film called Dia de los Muertos. It's like a short Mexican horror film, and it was set in like a Mexican strip club. So all the girls were wearing lingerie. I wasn't one of the strippers in the film. I was a bartender, but I still had to wear barely anything. So like a mini skirt, fishnet stockings, bra. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, I felt so uncomfortable being on set. And there were guys in the film too who were playing like creepy bar patrons, and like in between cuts, while we're waiting around, like they couldn't help but like stare at the girls because they're all wearing lingerie, right? And they're just checking them out. And I saw that and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like knowing that if I stayed female in the film industry, I would continue to get auditions for these kind of roles. And like, I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to be someone's girlfriend or like damsel in distress. Like I wanted to be the drug dealer or the hero or the whatever, you know, the male roles. So
The male roles,
yeah. So yeah, I was like, F it. I'm gonna do this.
That makes sense. So you mentioned hurting your mom's feelings and stuff like that. Like, what was it like growing up? So your sphere of influence, where we grew up Catholic, you were raised in a Catholic home, we went to a Catholic school. Like, how was it growing up for you?
Okay, I'm not gonna swear, but it was really tough, to be honest with you, because of what they teach. So it's like the message that I got being in a Catholic atmosphere was like, you can't be gay, you can't have sex before marriage, you can't masturbate, like all these restrictions, right? And so every night, like starting from elementary school to high school, every night, I swear to God, I had insomnia. Like I had a hard time sleeping because of this understanding, like, oh, okay, you're not supposed to be gay or you'll go to hell. So why the hell do I even exist, right? And I would lie awake at night trying to think of myself as straight. You know, I would try to picture myself married to a guy and like being with a guy and all that. And it felt wrong. Like, and so I just had major anxiety. And I guess while everyone was dating in like high school, I was mad jealous of everyone. I'm like, damn it, I just want to be a guy, like, so I could have girlfriends too. And I would see everyone like in the relationships, and sometimes I would see girls hurt, and I'm like, damn it, like if only I could be a guy, like I bet I could treat you better. Like I would think things like this. And so it was really tough, and like especially like being a female that was into sports. Like all I cared was like playing sports and like doing art, things like that. But unfortunately, that would grab like male attention. And so guys like from other schools, they would like me, and I didn't feel the same way. And that gave me even more anxiety because like I didn't want to make them feel like rejected or anything by me. I wish at the time I could have just been like, yo, I don't swing that way, so then it wouldn't hurt their ego. And at the same time, because like these guys liked me, girls from my school would hate me because they liked those guys. But I'm like, no, I like y'all. It's like messed up, right? So that was tough. And just every day constantly hiding the truth inside, you know, like knowing that like I was attracted to females, but I was female. Remember Mulan, the song? That is such a like Reflections, that song.
Oh, that song.
It was like,
I was like, what Mulan song?
Christina Aguilera, like who's that girl I see?
Girl I see,
yeah.
A lot of trans guys can relate to that song because you look in the mirror, like, yeah, you physically appear this way, but deep down inside, you know, something's up.
Right.
And yeah. So it was really tough growing up in a Catholic atmosphere. I went to church one time in the Philippines, in the mall. I'm like, why are we going to church? We're in the mall. I want to go shopping. But yeah, so anyways, we went to church. Like my aunt forced me, and the priest was like, oh, us Filipinos here, we're such devout Catholics that we don't even allow gay marriages. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, why am I here listening to this BS? I'm like, oh man, really trying hard not to swear. But yeah, so just like constantly hearing these things every day, like, oh, this is bad, gay is bad, blah blah, like constantly pretty much being told that you're bad and you shouldn't exist. That's how I experienced it. And so it was really tough.
Has that resolved at all now that you're a few years out in your transition with your sphere of influence, like with your family
resolved in terms of like levels of anxiety,
more accepting, like have they been more accepting? Has that eased subsequently eased your anxiety with it?
Like because with my I'm pretty, like, my family's supportive, my friends are supportive. It did take a long time for, I guess, my mom, because she already like saw me go through some things like as a lesbian before. And when I first told her that I was going to transition, she was kind of like not the most supportive. She wasn't down. She just told me like, oh, you don't have to do that. I already accepted you as a lesbian. You could be like Ellen. Like, nah. Ellen's cool, but nah. And because she was a nurse too, like I think she was just more concerned about like the health aspects of being on testosterone. So like I understand, and
from another perspective, what particular problems have you faced because of discrimination based on your gender identity?
Problems,
either in your workplace or again in your acting career.
To be honest with you, I don't think I really had that many problems. Like I'm pretty lucky because like I appear very, I guess, male. So I guess I do have that privilege. Like not all trans people do. Like some people are very androgynous. Actually, okay, I guess one problem would be, actually maybe there's quite a few problems. So when I was auditioning as a female in the film industry, I had a nice headshot, so I was getting a lot of auditions. Once I started to transition and I was going out for both male and female roles, like I found it kind of difficult because when you transition from female to male, there's a time in the beginning where you end up looking kind of like a teenage boy, like very androgynous, like you look very young. So I kind of felt like there was a challenge in that in the film industry while I was changing. And then I started to notice that I wasn't even getting as many auditions, and I knew that would happen too. I'm like, damn, maybe if I stayed female, like I would get way more roles and auditions, but at the same time, it would be for roles that I wouldn't want to play anyways. So luckily that's picked up. I'm starting to get more auditions and like for roles I would actually want to play.
Great.
Gender, I have faced, I guess, like sexual harassment as a female. I don't know if that would be part of your question or would answer part of your question, or is it more so like being trans?
Being trans, I would say. But again, as you pointed out, you do look very male. So again, you were saying your privilege in that. Maybe people wouldn't question that automatically. So that's it, as I would imagine that people who might not have that appearance might face more blatant discrimination and harassment.
I guess I could say that one thing would be like, I'm pretty open about my transition. So if sometimes, like if I do mention it in a conversation, some people will ask inappropriate questions, and that's like a common thing. I think it's just because people don't know and they're kind of fascinated and like don't realize they're asking questions they wouldn't ask another person who would be maybe not trans or
just
like
inappropriate and too personal. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I guess sometimes it could be difficult in terms of accessing healthcare for some trans people.
Okay.
Yeah, like so for myself, like when I wanted to move forward with like transitioning, I had to be put on 2 wait lists to get to see a doctor who specializes in it. And one place was like, I think it was like a 6-month wait list or something, or maybe even a year. And then I went on with their list, and then they told me to go to another place, put myself on that list too, just in case it's faster. So one was about like maybe 1 year, one was like 6 months, but the one that was allegedly 6 months ended up turning into like only 3 months. So I was like, sweet, like I got in. Yeah. So yeah, having to wait, that is an issue for trans people, because like, you know, they, especially nowadays with all like social media and YouTube, there's so much access to information. I could see youth like seeing other trans people and being very jealous of them in their journey. They're like, oh, I want that now too, right? And like, especially nowadays, like we're so impatient. We want things now. Amazon Prime now. So like I can see how trans youth would feel, I think, pressure and probably like envious and like jealous of people who are like able to transition because they are 18 and over, or they have access to healthcare and like they are independent. So yeah.
And as related to that, transitioning impacts your physicality. So you mentioned you had documented the changes in your vocal range as you were transitioning. What did you notice, and was this an overwhelming experience?
Yeah.
Did you ever listen back?
Oh my God, yeah. And like sometimes I want to cry. Okay, so this is like, yeah, it was like overwhelming, like AF. So before I like actually, that's another thing that kind of held me back from wanting to transition too, because like I did a lot of research beforehand, and anything that I came across in terms of the singing voice, there wasn't much out there except for trans guys saying like, if you're a singer and you transition, you're gonna sound like crap.
Yeah.
And that's very, very like wow. It's just discouraging. So that scared me, because I love to sing. And so basically I came across a study from a trans professor who teaches like music, and he did a test, I think, with like 10 or 20 subjects. So half the group took the regular dose of testosterone to transition, get all the physical changes and all that. And then the other half kind of started with like a lower dose to ease into it. And I think the ones that did start with like a lower dose had less of like issues with their singing voice and like adapting to it. Because basically, going on testosterone, you pretty much go through teenage boy puberty. So I had 2 puberties in my life.
Lucky you.
Lucky, I don't know about that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I think I would say 1 month into me going on testosterone, I did notice like kind of a scratchy feeling in my throat. And it kind of feels like you have a sore throat. And then, your voice just starts to lower more and more each day. And I would say it was overwhelming because it was very unstable. So based on that study that I came across, I decided to start with a lower dose and just extend that so I can kind of like let my vocal cords ease into all the changes. But to be honest with you, it was very sad at times, because there are times where I'd try to sing and I would crack, or like no sound would even come out. I would be like, and going from a life of singing freely and that being an escape and just something I love to do, like very passionate about, to not having any sound come out, like that scared me. And like not being able to sing female songs like Mariah Carey,
SWV.
SW, it scared me. So I was just like, damn, like you really do have to mourn a loss. And it was like very unstable. Like I couldn't tell what pitch I could hit one day compared to a next. Like one day I could be singing, it's all good, and then all of a sudden the next day I can't quite hit it. But I did find that years later that you just have to be very patient. Like you have to let your voice settle, and it does help to practice. Because you know how last year 2020, our favorite year, I had to close my shop. I couldn't tattoo, and like they paused the film industry too. So one of my friends, Jennifer, she suggested I become a live streamer and she thought it would be good for like my music. So I was like, okay, never live streamed before, but what I did, because we were on lockdown, I was like, F it, I'm just gonna have fun. And so every morning I would go live, sing karaoke for breakfast. And
awesome.
Yeah, and like I didn't even care. Like I was just like, people watching, I don't know y'all, like you don't know me, whatever, right? I'm just gonna do this and have fun. And I would only intend to sing for like half an hour, but half an hour would turn into like 3 hours because it was so much fun. And like I just did that all of last year pretty much, while I was closed. And I met a lot of cool people. It was really awesome. I even entered this online contest through that app, which was kind of like, it was called The Vocalist. And so it was like a vocal competition with people from around the world. And it was pretty intense. They would have different themes like every day, like, oh, you got to sing something 80s, you got to sing something having to do with space, or just, it was a Disney song. And like, I felt very blessed to have made it to the finals of that. I didn't win, but to go from like 50 something people from around the world down to like, I don't know, 20, down to 12, down to 8, down to the final 4, being a trans person and of color, like, that just made me so happy to represent, and
awesome.
Especially having gone through those frustrations while my voice was changing, it just was like, no, okay, everything's okay. It's gonna be okay.
And you could be your authentic self as well.
Exactly. But Romy, what would you give people who may be experiencing like questions about their gender and sexual identity, and then subsequently like feel alone and isolated in this journey? Like, what kind of advice could you give them?
So someone who is feeling it themselves, that they're potentially trans, going through that. I would say know that they're not alone. There's so many people out there who feel almost pretty much the exact same as you. I noticed like, actually, like it would help to just seek out a community out there, because there is a lot. On YouTube, there's a lot of trans people who document and share their stories. And honestly, that I find that is like very helpful. It's very comforting. Like you can even message people too. There's a lot of influencers out there. And sometimes like you won't, as much as you want to, you may not get or feel the support from the people closest to you, like your family and friends, because it's new to them too. Like I would say just be patient, because also with, changing your pronouns, for example, it will take people a while to get used to, especially if they've known you for a very long time. Like that's something that I struggled with too. My mom called me by my birth name for the longest time, like just because she's so used to calling me by that name. And like, it used to make me cringe in the beginning when I was starting my transition. Like it would make me mad. Like, why aren't you even trying? But years into it, I realized like, wait, I have to have more compassion for her. She is my mom. I was her daughter. And like, I can't expect her to, especially being, like Filipino mom, right? They're not down. Maybe if I was like, it was like, I don't know if it's bad to say, but like,
go ahead.
Say it.
Maybe if I grew up in like a Caucasian Canadian family, I don't know, they might've been more accepting and more open to.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. They're not down. Like, no. Ay nako.
And plus Filipino moms are like, hoy, Danielle, what was your name again?
Donna, Denise.
Donna, Denise.
Actually,
Danielle.
You know, it's actually cool. You know, Mamser.
Yeah,
So
it works. Mamser.
yeah, so in like Tagalog and Filipino language, there isn't really a gender. There's no he, her.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
So that's why they always
It's
call everyone Mamser, because they don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
Yeah, if you go into a shop,
combine it. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Just
Hey.
cover all the bases, right? I
Yeah.
was like,
So
oh,
just in
that's
case.
cool. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay,
Makes
Philippines is
sense.
pretty progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So patience and patience with yourself and with others that are
Yeah,
around you.
Yeah.
patience and seek out communities because there are some out there.
Mhm.
Do research of just like look into the idea of transitioning, like the medical aspects. Read stories, like watch stories of videos. Also, something important I would say is like know that transitioning isn't going to solve all your problems. Like if you're if you have depression, anxiety, and all of that, sure, transitioning can maybe help align your physical self with how you feel inside, but you have to also do the inner work.
Yeah, for sure.
Because those same problems will still be there. You're
Mhm.
still
Yeah,
the same
good point.
person, like whatever anxieties, whatever insecurities you might have, they might still be there. So like it may help alleviate a lot of your anxiety, but at the same time, you're still the same person. And like, yeah.
You touched on this as well, because as you know, in recent months, Vancouver has seen over 700% increase in anti-Asian hate incidents.
Yeah.
What has your experience been? I mean, as a transgender individual who is also of Asian descent. Yeah.
For myself, like recently, I haven't, like, luckily I haven't had any attacks on me or any racial slurs like thrown at me. But seeing all the attacks on Asian elderly and even the women, like the recent shooting, that did trigger memories of me being an Asian female in the past. And it's really sad because like it's only like I realized I'm like, oh, okay, I only had to like change everything about my life and transition to a man now to feel respect and feel safer. You know, that's like it's so sad because I kind of feel like now that I appear male and I have all this like male privilege, like it bothers me even more to see the night and day difference of how I can just go about my life and not worry about feeling safe, knowing that all the other women in the world are still facing those issues. And it just, I'm so over it. Like, I'm sure you're all over it too.
Yeah.
It's only recent, like why it's 2021 and this is still happening.
Still happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not cool.
Do you recall anything like, so now that we're talking about anti-Asian hate and it's in our backyard, like have you ever had an instance or like some kind of microaggression that's happened to you even as a young kid? Because I know
for sure.
Tab and I talk about it all the time. Like I get triggered because I remember like what was your first, I guess if you can recall what your first anti-Asian hate microaggression situation was?
I don't remember necessarily my first, but I do remember one time being in my car with my younger cousins. We were at like a playground at a park and we were just waiting in the car for the rest of our family to come back. And then there were like 3 little Caucasian girls, young girls, like right in front of the car. And they were like doing the whole eyes thing, Asian eye thing, and like calling me like Chinese man or whatever. And I'm like, damn, like who raised these little B words?
Did
you? Like, it's just
who are all young, right? Young age too. That's
did you say anything to them?
I think my cousins were probably swearing at them, like they're probably flipping them the bird or whatever. But I was just like, oh God, like I stayed in my car and I was just like, wow, ew, you know?
Yeah, pretty much.
And also like I would say growing up, I've always felt that, especially with the way society portrayed Caucasians, they always portray themselves as a top race.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I could sense that superiority anywhere I'd go. Like, as a kid, I'm like, oh, okay, these people are white. Like, they're in charge of things and
Everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just remember feeling so annoyed growing up because they lack culture. Like, but they think they're all that. Like, okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there have been times, maybe I blocked it out, but I can't really think of too many right now.
But you talked about when you were at the park and then your cousins and you, well, your cousins were like flipping them the bird or whatever.
Yeah.
What else can we do, or what can people do to kind of like, first of all, what can we do? Like, what can we do differently instead of just flipping them the bird? Like, can we as Asians or people of color, what can we do to kind of like stop that? Aside from just flipping them the bird, like what would you hope? I guess.
Well, calling them out on it.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that falls on everyone to do as well.
Oh yeah,
not necessarily the victims, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say like call the person out, whoever's saying what they shouldn't be saying, even if you're a bystander, say something too. I've been put in situations where I've said something even as a female, like a tiny female, saying something to someone who's like over 6 feet tall, but being a bully, being a dick to like people of color. Just because I can't stand that. Like, I can't stand people bullying others. Yeah, like I don't know. I called some guy out. This was pre-transition because he was being such a dick to these like workers, and I don't know. He was saying mean things to me. I guess like the fact that I was a lesbian, calling me a dyke and whatnot. But I just, I didn't care. I kind of just like started making fun of him, and then the whole restaurant started laughing at him. He left.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like punk. And then I realized, I'm like, whoa, that guy's huge. He could have just picked me up and chucked me, but I didn't care, honestly. I think it's very important to call people out, because otherwise they won't know that what they're doing is not cool, and we have to like stick up for each other regardless of. I know some people think like of the danger of it, right, of calling someone out or sticking up for, but we have to, because like they'll just think, oh, you won't do anything. I say this shit all the time. Oh my god, I say this all the time. And you do nothing. And like, you know, the whole model minority thing, not cool. And I get it. Like, I get that a lot of Asian households were raised to be like respectful and like not complain and all this stuff, but no, we have to be straight up with everything and how you're feeling, and call out the realities of it, and show people that we're not just like silent people, and we're pissed off. How can even working in retail, I would kind of get super annoyed when people would look at products, turn it around, like, oh, it's made in China. It's like, yo, 99% of everything is pretty much made in China. Like, how can you enjoy Asian food and Asian this and that, yet hate on the people? And people, oh my god, I'm glad that a lot of history is being resurfaced, like truthful history, not just the edited things that we were shown in school. A lot of Canada, a lot of America was built on like people of color. And
100%.
I mean, and it's not just us as Asians, it's not our own ethnicity, our own culture, it's everyone else's culture too. Like, we're in Canada supposed to be ruled and like owned by First Nations people. Like, what the hell, right? It never made sense. That's another thing that didn't make sense to me growing up. When I was a kid, I just knew of like First Nations people being called like, oh, drunks or this or that, like lower. I'm like, wait, no, aren't they the first ones here? Like it should be the opposite. They should be on top. Like what is going on? And even like just the things going on in America, like Black Lives Matters, we're all in this, you know, and we're all over it. We're all pissed off. Like, yeah, we just want change, especially it's been going on for so long. We're over it. And we can't see, like we can't see change unless we do something. And like doing something might be going against what people are used to, but that's what you need to do in order to see that kind of change.
And also working together, like Asians and Black people, Indigenous, like all of us working actually together to fight white supremacy. And that's pretty much what it is. We're obviously not all in the same boat. We've had different experiences, but our one common experience is white supremacy. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we also should look, not only at our own culture and ethnicity, history, we should look at others too.
Everyone.
So we have compassion for everyone and like realize that we're all pretty similar in so many ways too. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Romeo, for joining us today. Sharing your lived experiences and offering your perspective is truly appreciated. And will go far to help educate and educate others. So we have some helpful resources if you'd like to learn more about being an ally for all marginalized groups in our community. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. I wanted to actually add one thing.
Yes.
One thing that I think is also important with people or youth who are considering transitioning, like let's say you're going from female to male like I did. One thing I would look into before starting your journey, if you do go into hormone therapy, is look into egg freezing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look at her like, no, that's actually,
you never know, like later on in life, you might want to have children and you might want to have your own DNA like used for the child. So that is something that I would recommend definitely like looking into. And also if you are definitely going to start the journey, if you are looking into surgeries or like name change and all that, I would say do the research and do it early. Like if you are doing the name change, do it as soon as you can, so that you don't run into those like awkward moments of you trying to get your prescription or go to the bank with a female passport, female name, but appearing male. Like that's what I did right away because like I didn't want to go through that.
Of course.
And also look into what healthcare you have available in your city, province, country, because here in BC we're actually very lucky. We have a lot of resources and coverage for healthcare. So definitely look into that. Yeah.
Amazing.
I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's good points. Yeah, I would have never thought of that. Good. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Romeo.
It's nice. It's nice to see you again, Liz. And nice to meet you too, Tamara.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. This is so crazy.
Oh, by the way, today is also Trans Day of Visibility.
Yes.
Forgot to mention that.